Hey everybody, welcome to Our Watch. I am Tim Thompson. Today we're going to be talking about several things. One of the things we're really going to hit on is the fact that cartels are finally going to be deemed terrorist organizations. In order to talk more at length about this, we are bringing on a special guest today. Patrick Byrd is joining us. He's the former CEO of Overstock.com. Patrick Byrd, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be on, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Yes, glad to have you on. Just a little bit, if you would, just about who you are and what you do.
I'm a patriotic American. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started and built about a dozen companies, the most famous one being Overstock. Actually, but maybe the more significant one being the America Project, which is a company that we set up. General Flynn asked me to come down to Florida and get this going. And we got it going in March of 2021, 2 months after the coup. So the illegitimately elected president was sworn in. I will recognize it went through the process, but and we see this isn't about Biden. This isn't about Trump. This is a communist revolution going on in the United States. And both General Flynn and I know enough about such matters that this is a soft coup that we're living through. And it's the end of the United States if it's not defeated. So I moved down to Florida, and the goal basically was we worked together to get this movement going. And that's what we're not the bosses of the movement. We just did a lot to help set the fires and get people spun up and organized and get them. But now they're all sort of on their own out there fighting the fight.
Yeah.
We love them.
Well, there's a lot of forward motion right now. We got a lot to do over the next this next election cycle. Talk to me, if you would, about Jack Smith and this Trump prosecutor.
Yeah, Jack Smith is corrupt. Before he was prosecuting Donald Trump, or what I should say is before he was engaged in this corrupt prosecution of Donald Trump, Jack Smith was engaged in some corrupt prosecutions in Europe. And he was the American prosecutor at the War Crimes Court in The Hague, the International Court of Justice. And there, what he was really doing was sending his goons out to various people in Eastern Europe, various tough guys, and saying, hey, we know that in 1997 in a village in Serbia, you murdered these two people. Jack Smith, the Americans are going to bring charges against you in The Hague, but if you'll slip 400 grand into a suitcase, we'll take it back to Jack, all your problems go away. The bribes were $400,000 all the way up to $9 million, but $7 million and $9 million bribes were paid with Bitcoin. Now, I know this because I spent much of last year chasing this story around Europe, chasing the whistleblowers, getting them to introduce me to others, and putting all this together. We got them. We have texts. We got bank records. We got affidavits, beautiful affidavits from very responsible, serious people, a famous investigative journalist. There's lawyers involved in Germany who were part of gathering all this, and as well as professionals in America that I brought over. So we had them dead to rights, and we filed the case. We have Jack Smith dead to rights. He's a criminal. And we filed this whistleblower complaint. I've got some update. We filed this on around, let's say, December 1st. And we gave it to 5 different inspector generals within Washington. The inspector general of the DOJ, of the CIA, of the State Department, of the intelligence community as a whole, and sort of a 5th general purpose inspector general in DC. And by law, they have to respond. Well, evidently 4 of them delegated their response to the Department of Justice, and the Inspector General's office of the Department of Justice sent us a very strange letter. And their very strange letter said, well, anyway, we're happy, but what's really important, they're hiding and running I won't go into details. The DOJ, the Inspector Generals, they're hiding and running. We got them dead to rights. Everyone's afraid of this. But what's really important is a week after we filed this is when Jack Smith went to the Supreme Court and filed this thing about basically we need to speed this up. We need to speed this up on an emergency basis. Well, that's because Jack Smith understands he's standing on an ice floe, on an ice sheet, and the ice is melting beneath him. We caught him. We got him dead to rights on what he did, and we're going to put him through a meat grinder. So he's trying to rush. He wants to get this thing, the prosecution of Donald Trump, done in March, but now he's got his own problems. He filed that about 7 days after we brought the whistleblower against him. The Supreme Court smacked him down, thumped him like a little baby seal. And you may have heard, was it just last night or 2 nights ago? He filed a new thing with the Supreme Court. I haven't read the whole thing. I've read part of it. It's incoherent from a legal point of view. He's filed something with the Supreme Court now saying, like, you need to rush this because this guy is doing so much damage to society. So you just need to rush this. Well, that's not how judges work. And that's not how the law is supposed to work. It's much more specific legal reasoning than just this guy's is going to do a lot of damage and you need to. And he basically said, we have a right to a speedy trial. Well, if you read the Constitution correctly, the accused has the right to a speedy trial. The prosecutor doesn't have the right to a speedy trial. It's the silliest thing I've ever heard. The accused has the right to build their defense and do everything they want and go to trial. If they want it to be speedy, they can. But the prosecution doesn't have a right to a speedy trial. But here we have an American special counsel arguing to the Supreme Court that he has a right to a speedy trial against Donald Trump. Is it just me, or has this gotten really funny? It's getting ridiculous.
It's embarrassing, is what it is. That people are allowing this to continue on. So what do you think the likelihood of him getting this moved up to March is?
Well, it's already set in March. Well, no, I'm sorry. It was set in March, and it's now been blown. Because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in March. I don't think it's going to happen this year. Because what they did was the judge. Now, the judge is no Einstein. The judge is a terrible judge. I know from a previous case that I was involved peripherally in. She's a total hack, total Democratic Party operative masquerading as a judge. But now it's so convoluted and tangled up in these arguments. She's taken it off her March docket. It's no longer on the calendar. So this prosecutor, not only isn't he going to get it sped up from March to earlier, and not only is he going to get it to prosecute in March, it's now been suspended indefinitely. I don't think it's ever going to come back. I don't think you're ever going to see that case, the J6 side of the case, come back. He's still got the document side to worry about, but he's basically through it's never going to come back. The Supreme Court, the fact that his own judge, his own captive judge, has now delayed it indefinitely while all this gets studied by experts, it's not even in her calendar anymore. I don't know if it's ever going to get put in a calendar again. It's effectively over. The one up in Virginia, which is the whole J6 matter. And I don't know if you saw the Fani Willis hearing today in Georgia. Did you see that hearing? I actually felt bad.
I haven't seen it yet.
I felt bad because they got caught lying. They got caught. It turns out Fani Willis and the special prosecutor she's hired are having an affair. And the guy was married. And he filed for the divorce. And the next day was given this $1 million a year case. And it turns out the guy's never prosecuted anyone. He's a slip and fall attorney.
Right.
You slip and fall in front of someone's restaurant,
right.
You want to come down for 10 grand. He's that kind of an attorney. Fani Willis gave him the job of prosecuting the previous president. It turns out that they're having an affair. They filed weeks ago a statement that said, okay, we are having an affair, but it started just last year because we've been working so closely together on this prosecution. Fani Willis's best friend from 2019 has come forward and said they were having an affair. They met back in 2019. They were romantic from the beginning. They've been having an affair this whole time. The guy gets up on the stand. He was caught in so many. I actually felt bad for him because they're like, well, look, here's your statement to your wife and your divorce papers from 2023 that said there were no expenses or receipts there were no affairs. You never had an affair. And he said, you're right. I never had an affair. And they say, well, we just heard testimony, but they got him to admit he did have an affair, but just since 2021, he's been having an affair with her. And so after they started working together. And so the woman says, well, here's your divorce papers where you filed last year. He said, you never had an affair. And he says, well, Okay, that's because my wife had an affair in 2015. And after she had an affair, I didn't consider me sleeping with somebody else an affair. That's why I answered that way. I mean, they catch the guy in flat lies. Then they say,
Yeah.
well, okay. They said, okay, you say you started in 2021. Her best friend says you started in 2019. And then you were taking, it turns out, taking her away, cabins, cruises and stuff like this on the public dime.
Right.
With the money to prosecute Trump. So, and he's saying, no, it started in 2022. It's only started in 2022. And the lawyer says, okay, did you ever take Fannie Willis to a cabin? And they have the receipt of him taken to a cabin back when he was saying they didn't have an affair.
Yeah.
And the guy just stares at the ceiling for 30 seconds. He can't even answer.
Yeah.
So in any normal, sane world, that judge has to. These people have been caught lying 8 ways from Sunday.
Yep.
Fannie Willis, what the judge should do is should move it to a different, say, you guys have been conflicted. You can't prosecute this. Find some other Georgia prosecutor who will prosecute your case for you. There is no other Georgia prosecutor who's going to touch it. So what happened today effectively kills the Georgia case against Trump and the other 20 people. The J6 case is, anyway, so the stuff against Trump is crumbling.
Yeah, well, good. Glad to hear that. Well, I also want to shift gears here for a moment because I want to talk about what Steve Montenegro did. And you're saying he's being deemed a hero at this point.
Steve Montenegro is one of a great. Steve Montenegro is like a Jack Kennedy, a Hispanic version of John F. Kennedy. He's this wonderful. He'll never be president because he was born in El Salvador. He came here when he was 5. He's an immigrant to Arizona, a legal immigrant. And he's a wonderful guy. He's the kind of guy who built the kind of immigration that built America. He's a wonderful guy. He was elected very young to the Arizona State House and the Senate. I think he may have been the Speaker of the House or something at a very early age. He's just been reelected back in. He's in the Senate. Anyway, he got since Arizona is corrupt and none of the governor and the attorney general will do anything about the cartels because they are themselves, I believe, owned by the cartel. The cartel rigged their phony election. We all saw what happened in the Kerry Lake election because they have stolen these key positions. You're never going to see Arizona do the right thing and start pushing back against the cartels. Senator Montenegro got a referendum on the ballot. He got this pushed through until it was all approved today in the Arizona legislature. And both, I have to say, unanimously, Democrats and Republicans signed off and voted yes in favor of this. The people of Arizona, come November, are going to be able to vote on whether to declare the cartels terrorist organizations. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. It's like, and it's being taken out of the hands of the corrupt politicians, is being given to the people. Now, I hope there's still a country and I hope there's still a state come November. But if there is, they're finally going to be able to declare the cartels terrorists and start responding to them.
Yes, yeah. So what do you think is going to change? So I'm hoping that they're going to vote the right way, and I'm hoping this goes into law. So when that does, effectively, what is this going to allow us to do with the cartels?
Well, if you had law enforcement and a governor who wanted to do something with it, what it allows them is it takes basically all the handcuffs off on fighting them. When you're the rules are one thing if you're fighting some people who are doing, car thefts. The rules are a different thing if you're fighting Al-Qaeda. If you're fighting Al-Qaeda or a terrorist organization, there's very different rules for the police and law enforcement and national and the FBI and stuff like that than if you're fighting some people who rob liquor stores. And they're going to be able to apply those more loosey-goosey rules. You ever see the movie Sicario?
Yes.
Okay, what they did in that movie was because the cartel had been declared a terrorist organization. When it's a terrorist organization, you can do things like they did in that movie.
Gotcha. Just briefly, as we just have a couple minutes left here, and I just want to share a little bit of I want you to share a little bit of your story because we talked about these bribes that are taking place, and I think a question is, does that type of stuff actually happen? And you've got firsthand experience in that. You've actually been asked by our government to set traps in the form of bribes for a couple of people, Hillary Clinton being one, Donald Trump being the other. Can you talk to us a little bit about the reality of that?
Yeah, well, I was asked to participate in the investigation of the Clintons. And I hate saying this because I love them. I love the organization. Its leadership's got some problem with the FBI. I grew up, one of the first books I ever bought was about the FBI and these wonderful heroes. It's like such a part of my heart. I hate being in this position. But yeah, the FBI had me bribe Hillary Clinton. Actually, it wasn't just the FBI. Just so you know, I shouldn't even say the FBI. It was James Comey and John Brennan. I don't think I've ever made that clear. John Brennan was in on it, but set that aside. The FBI, James Comey, had me bribe Hillary Clinton, or arrange a bribe. And how it was done, there was a foreign country which was believed to want to pay Hillary a bribe. And my assignment was to get to the foreign country, find the bag man, convince them that I'm the kind of guy who can and will do things like this, have them introduce me to the bag man and get the bag man back and get him in a room. And as the agent said, Patrick or Mr. Burns, sometime, somewhere in the world in the next 2 months, there's going to be a room. And Hillary Clinton's going to walk into that room, and the bag man from Azerbaijan is going to walk into that room. They're going to spend 10 minutes alone in that room together and then walk out. You make that happen any way you want to make that happen. And I said, I'm going to have to be bribing people and stuff. And they said, no problem. So I bribed people and stuff. And anyway, no, I did what had to be done. And I can promise that 7 weeks later, on the morning of January 14th, 2016, Hillary Clinton walked into a hotel. Well, she was staying in a hotel in Washington, D.C., morning of January 14th, 2016. And you want me to walk through the details of how it was done? I don't think I've ever explained to the public.
Sure, please.
Yeah, she was on the 8th floor. Her assistant was on the 5th floor. She had a limousine at 9 a.m. She's supposed to come down just before 9, get in the limo. The bag man from Azerbaijan came into the hotel, was brought in at 8:30, was brought up to the 5th floor, and went to that assistant's room and waited. At 8:47, Hillary leaves her room on the 8th floor, goes to the elevator like she's going to the ground, but she got off on the 5th, and she walked into her assistant's room. Her assistant stood outside, and Hillary met with the bag man in that room for 10 minutes. And then she came out, took the elevator, went down, got in the limo at 9:02. So it doesn't show up in her schedule, but it showed up it happened on the morning of January 14th, 2016. And this has all been confirmed. Just so you know, the Durham committee showed me the bribe after I went in and told the DOJ all this, and 10 days later, they announced the Durham committee. And I can tell you, in July of 2020, a federal came to see me to show me a document to ask if I'd ever seen it. It was actually, I think, electronically. And the document was an $18 million wire into a numbered account and a bank in Azerbaijan the week I told them they would find it. So they found Hillary's bribe, and they confirmed to me they found Hillary's bribe. She hasn't been prosecuted because it's just all corrupt. The DOJ is corrupt. The administration is corrupt. All of Washington, D.C. is corrupt. It's just all corrupt. They have that. They've had that since the summer of 2020. The Durham committee has it. They buried everything. It's all corrupt.
So all corrupt. I've got one final question for you today, sir. It's all corrupt. How confident are you that we're going to be able to turn this ship around in 2024?
50-50. I think we'll win the election. If there's a fair election, we'll have a great victory, and we will show a way out of this with no bloodshed. I'm all about truth and reconciliation. I think the only thing that keeps me alive at this point, the reason they don't kill me, is there's precisely one guy on this side of the table who knows what the expression truth and reconciliation means. And I mean, Mike Flynn knows, but there's this process. Various African states went through it after like apartheid or after civil wars. And they do this, when you've been in a state like Sierra Leone where people cut off 100,000 hands and 100,000 rapes and all this stuff, are you really going to prosecute 80,000 people and put them away? You'll have a new civil war if you even try. The way through it is you have a system where everything can come forward and and everybody confesses to everything they did, and everything is forgiven, and we all go on. I mean, this is actually what Mandela, I think he invented it after apartheid in South Africa when he became president. He realized, are we really going to put 200,000 white people who cooperated with apartheid in prison? You couldn't. So what we're going to do is have this other process. And it's how they got their country past the horror of apartheid with no civil war. Now, I don't know, looks like they're getting pretty close these days. So that's how we have to do it. And I think the only reason they haven't killed me is an insurance policy, because if they lose, I'm probably the way. If we get back in, or I shouldn't say we, because I didn't even vote for Trump. I've come to like him. I didn't vote for him either time. This had nothing to do about Donald Trump to me. I have very much came to like him much more as president, but again, it has nothing to do with that. Anyway, they know that if they lose to him, I understand they're very worried that they're all going to get strung up from trees. I've had reporters ask me the questions that these guys tell them to ask. And what started happening about a year ago is the reporters started asking, if we get through all this and Trump's back in charge, you guys are going to be hanging thousands of people. And I don't know how anyone else feels, but there's one guy on this side who believes in this process called truth and reconciliation. He says you can't hang thousands, you can't hang hundreds of people. You can't really hang anyone. If you start doing that, we're going to explode in a civil war. We got to have the truth come out so everybody knows what happened all around. On all sides, everybody confess. I've got some confessions to make. Everyone's got some. We get everything out, and then we all move forward. Everything's forgiven. That's the only way I see out of this without a civil war.
All right.
But I'm pretty alone on our side of the table, because look, there's 3.5 million businesses who were destroyed. There's hundreds of millions of Americans whose lives were changed, tens of millions of childhoods that were disrupted. The damage this did to America is historical. But we still have a chance to get through it. And I would have put the chances of that about 5% 3 years ago. I think it's 50-50 now. We're going to get to the White House, and we're going to have the Republicans will recover the White House, and we will have truth and reconciliation, and all move on.
We'll see. We got less than a year left to see where that goes. Patrick Byrd, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate all that you do, and appreciate all the truth that you're bringing to us. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Please like this video, share it with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Get over to ourwatch.com, subscribe, become one of our watchmen. We'd really appreciate that. God bless you all. We'll see you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.